Hi and welcome back to Mama G's Pantry. Today we're making one of my favorite dinners, roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. With an English name like Greenwood, it should come as no surprise. Now Doug's favorite meal is roast chicken and mashed potatoes, but when this becomes Dougie D's Pantry, I'll let you know. So I see you've seen a picture of my live audience looking out the window this beautiful May day. And now we're gonna get started on this. So Yorkshire pudding, the first time it was ever noted was 1737, very British. It was noted in a book called The Whole Duty of a Woman, which I should probably get a copy of because I think I don't do that right. Anyway, 10 years later it was renamed in another cookbook, I think called The Art of Baking, Yorkshire pudding, because of the region it was most associated with, Yorkshire, and its association with coal, where they could get a really high temperature so the Yorkshire puddings would poof up. I made these a lot when I was single, about 400 years ago. I used to make them, and I'd go to the deli and buy a sliced roast beef and a package of gravy and have Yorkshire pudding for myself. And in the morning I put jam on them for breakfast. They're really like the, it's milk, eggs, and flour, all in the way you cook it. It's pancakes, it's gougere, it's all those things we've made before. Now, I used to make my mom's traditional British recipe, which was you mixed it up early in the day, you left a bunch of lumps in it, and you stuck it in the fridge to get really cold. Before you put it into a hot pan. It was called dripping pudding because it was traditionally cooked with some kind of pork or beef dripping, fat. Food was scarce in England, I guess, back then, and they wanted to use everything. So to cook these, they would use the drippings from the roast and put it into a hot pan and then bake it. We'll get to that. Anyway, this new recipe I found in the last couple of years, sorry Ellie, I find works much better. I loved her recipe, but at family dinners, when they came out of the oven, they'd be big and poofed up, and I'd have to go, everybody come here, come see the Yorkshire pudding before they all fall down. And by the time they got to the dining room table, they kind of looked like little hockey pucks. So I read this recipe recently that's a little different, but I've tried it many times and it works. It's really simple, equal amounts of egg, flour, and milk. So the first thing I did is break my eggs. In this case, I did 3, which came out to 2/3 of a cup of egg. So that goes in there. Here's 2/3 of a cup pre-measured flour. That goes in there. 2/3 of a cup of milk. It's a recipe I'll never ever have to look up again. Equal parts flour, eggs, and milk. Teaspoon of salt. And whisk away. And unlike my mother's recipe and many recipes which I have read, where they say leave it lumpy, you don't want it to get really smooth. In this recipe you do. You want to get all the lumps out. You want it almost to look like pancake batter or thick cream. And as I said, in past recipes, it was always put it in the fridge to get really cold. In this recipe, it asks you to keep it at room temperature for at least 30 minutes. And I've done it as long as you want. Quite often when I make this, I'll whip it up after lunch and let it sit on the counter for 3 or 4 or 5 hours before I cook it. Okay, there we go. To that, of course, we're just going to cover it with some plastic wrap, and I'm going to let it sit on my counter until I'm ready to cook it. Now, roast beef. Also, my mom used to cook it. Once again, being British, it was often grey. Not really. I mean, we liked it medium rare. We are from Alberta. The British were known for boiling their beef. However, today, we've also, through much practice, found, I think, a surefire way to cook roast beef. Now, this is just for Doug and I, so it's not even 2 pounds. This recipe works whether you use a small roast like this, or, oh my gosh, it's delicious with like a great big standing rib roast for company. First thing you do with almost any meat, of course, is when you cook it, you want it not right out of the fridge. You want it to sit there and loosen up a bit, come to room temperature. Then we're going to season it. Kosher salt, don't be shy, quite a lot. The reason we do this, believe it or not, the use of salt actually helps the meat stay moist. It's going to react with the protein now in the meat, and it kind of loosens it up. It keeps it moist. It keeps all the moisture in. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add some freshly ground black pepper. And once again, now I'm going to let this just sit here. You can do this 30 minutes before and up to 2 hours before. Just make sure you take the meat out of the fridge about an hour before so it comes to room temperature. Okay, I'm done for now. I'm just going to cover this up with plastic, and we'll come back in a little while and put the roast in the oven. Yorkshire pudding will be after that. See you later. Okay folks, so here we are. I'm getting ready to put this roast beef into the oven. Now this is just a little bare in the beef, so there's not very much fat on it, which is kind of sad because you need fat for drippings, for Yorkshire pudding or for gravy. But that's okay, it'll still work. First thing we have to do, it's been sitting there with that salt on it, is I'm searing it up in a pan. Now I've used a little bit of oil in here just to try and keep it from not sticking. Okay, and like most meat, we're going to brown it up really nice. I used to think that was what made the moisture stay inside, but that's not true. It's the salting before. What this does is gives it that nice caramelization both for taste and appearance. Otherwise, it'll look like a grey English boiled beef. We don't want that. The wonderful thing about cooking this low and slow in a low oven, I'm putting it in at 250 degrees, is that it cooks it really evenly. See how nice and, oh, the last side. It cooks it really evenly. And so instead of having sort of really well done on the outside because you cooked it at high heat and rare in the middle, this seems to make it cook, and I like my beef medium rare, the same all the way through from top to bottom. It is worth the effort. Alright, so as soon as that's all browned up, pretty good, I'm just going to take it, turn the fan on, and put it in my 250 degree oven. I think I'll check it in about an hour. The other thing that is really useful when cooking any meat, really, is a good thermometer. And we have one of these Insta-Reads. I mean, a cheaper poke in the meat is okay, but if you poke it in the meat, you're going to lose juices. Anyway, this is essential to cook a really good roast. Alright, we're going to let that bake away, and we'll come back when it's done, and I'll show you how to finish the Yorkshire pudding. So for my 2-pound roast beef, that's taken just over an hour. I just checked it. It has reached an internal temperature of 140. So you want about 135 to 140 if you want it medium rare. If you want it boiled like English leather, go to like 160, whatever, knock yourself out. If you want it blue rare, take it out, 115, 120. Oh, there we go. And I'm just going to take it out of there and put it on my cutting board and let it rest. Like 15 minutes. All meat should rest. Steaks, when they come off the barbecue, give them 5 minutes. If you break into them too early, you're going to let all the juice out and all the flavor. Now, I have preheated my oven to 400 degrees and put muffin tins in. You want to get this oil really hot, so I did that while I was finishing that. And I just put about half a teaspoon of canola oil in each one. If I were making dripping pudding, I would use the beef drippings. But because that was such a little tiny roast, I don't really have any drippings. If you had a big standing rib, use the drippings. It's awesome. Okay, here's my Yorkshire mix. It's been sitting on the counter for a couple hours. I haven't done this before, but I'm trying it. Always try something new. Here's my dough. I added 2 tablespoons of really cold water. I'm thinking this is going to release some steam and make them puff up even more. So then about a third full, half full, fill 12 cups, not full. It goes in there, you can hear the oil kind of go, oh my. When you do the recipe, when you do it out of the fridge and you put it in the hot oil, it really goes and sizzles. Okay. Just gonna make it. Try and make them all about the right same size. And then this is going back into a 400 degree oven for about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to check on them. I like to do them really hot at first and then maybe turn it down a bit towards the end. so that they cook through but are still poofed. There we go. We'll be back when those are done. Finish up our meal. Okay, my Yorkshire puddings have been in the oven now for 18 minutes actually, and they look nice and poofy brown. So I'm going to get going on my gravy. Okay, so if I'd had a big roast and got lots of drippings, once again I would have used it in the Yorkshire pudding. I would have also used it to make gravy. With a small roast like this, I really didn't get much. So I am cheating. I didn't say it was Mama G's gourmet pantry, but you gotta have gravy with roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. Even my vegetarian daughter does. So amazingly enough, she told me use Clubhouse brown gravy sauce. It's vegetarian. There's no meat in it. And it's simple and it's tasty and it's better than no gravy. So I've used the brown that I did have from the roast, put in a cup of water, my sauce mix, and now by whisking like this, I'm also getting up all the little brown pieces of caramelization on the bottom from the roast, which will add to the flavor. You kind of see it in there, and with this mix, just make it in the same pan, always do. You just bring it to the boil and simmer it for a few minutes. I just want to make sure it's all mixed. And then I'm going to haul my Yorkshire puddings out of the oven so you can see how beautiful they are. Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Oh, I love that one. Nice and floofy and brown. Look at that. Little pockets to put your gravy in. Okay, my gravy is boiling here. So now we turn it down and simmer it for a bit. I think the recipe calls for 5 minutes. I'm going to add a little more water as needed to keep it the consistency I want. And when we come back, I'll show you our complete roast beef and Yorkshire pudding dinner. So here we are. Welcome to my dinner table. My favorite meal. Beautifully cooked roast beef. You can see it's kind of nice and medium rare all the way through. Some steamed beans. Oh, you gotta have horseradish, by the way. Beautiful tossed salad. My yummy looking Yorkshire pudding. And my faux gravy, which by the way is no longer vegetarian because I put it into the meat gravy. But if you don't, it would be vegetarian. There we go. I'm gonna dig in and enjoy this. Hope you'll try it too. Low and slow. The way to go with roast beef. Your patience will be rewarded, as Alton Brown says. Bye for now.